While out on the Washington backcountry discovery route last week, a 911 bike finally had its first failure. Let me start off by saying it was totally my fault. I ignored a couple warning signs, and what it turned out to be, and we're going to go over all this in some detail if you guys stick around. Basically, my stator fried itself, or was fried. It didn't fry itself, so that it was only putting out about 6 volts through the rectifier. I will real quick talk about stator. Behind this little fuse here is your rectifier, and that basically feeds electricity to your whole bike. Mine died and left me sitting, and thank you to Mosco Moto and specifically to Bear for coming out and rescuing me in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Now, I'm on the edge of nowhere. I wasn't actually nowhere. What kills stators? Time. If they can just wear out, parts wear out, or you can overload them. And what had happened to my bike as a cautionary tale, I have heated grips, I have a Baja Designs headlight on it and a couple other things. And last year, things started getting weird when a switch for my heated grips was shorting out, and I could actually see the voltage go up and down when I would wiggle this switch. I ignored it for a couple hundred miles before I finally switched it out. So that was number one. Number two, at 120 watts for this system, what I have on here now is right on the edge of what it can do. 120 watts between heated grips and the Baja Design headlights, running a GPS and running a phone all at the same time. So if you guys are in that same boat, I think if you got the stock headlight, you're okay. This headlight puts out a ton of light, and therefore it uses more electricity. So all those things combined already have the stator kind of at its max. And I pushed through last year without changing anything, and I probably shouldn't have. On this trip, the first thing that happened was, and I don't have it, I'm pretty sure I like smashed it and then threw it in a trash can, was the dual USB port that gave the voltage readout for your system from Rebel X that comes with the kit. It started acting really weird, like the voltage would just show up as 8s and it would blink, and it did a bunch of stuff. So I worked on the wiring. I got it to work by not routing it through my tower, by running it straight off the accessory port, and it seemed to work. And about 2, 3, 4 miles into my ride, all of a sudden it just quit, and it wouldn't put out any voltage at all. So I ended up re-rigging a different USB port through my 12-volt leads here that I use for my battery. I recommend, if you guys are adventure riding, get a set of these guys, these 12-volt universal plug-ins. You can find them anywhere, and it gives you an instant access to your battery if you need voltage. Anyways, I rigged that up, and that seemed to work pretty good for the first 3 days. And I really think what happened is I accidentally turned on my grip heaters. Because I was plugging my air pump into the circuit so that I could inflate my tires, and maybe, I know the headlight was on, I can't turn it off, but maybe I had high beams on too. Maybe I had all that going on, plus my GPS was plugged in. I don't know, but whatever it was put the final nail in the coffin. It was, I'll be your Huckleberry. Remember that movie? Probably not. So that's what happened. Another 100 miles later, and my speedometer went out. It went to 0. No big deal. Another 20 miles, and I'm coasting downhill, and the bike started sputtering and backfiring really bad, run horribly. And I thought it was just maybe just got the plug loaded up from engine braking for miles and miles and miles. I got to the bottom of the hill, and the bike quit altogether. And this is when I knew I was in trouble because I was still out in the middle of nowhere. And I pulled over and started pulling stuff apart to try to figure out what was going on. And then here I'll cut in, I'll show you this video I took in the middle of nowhere in case the wolves and the bears ate me. You guys would know what happened. All right, so this is what's going on. At the top of this ridge, my speedometer went off. And whatever happened to this drained the battery. I don't know if it's a short or what, or worst case scenario is the stator's dead. I always carry my jumper because I have a starter bike only. I don't have a Kickstarter. Wow, that was really hard to say. So I jumped it and I let it run. I pulled all my gear off. I let it run for a few minutes and it died again. So I've got an electrical gremlin. I've pulled all the fuses except the fuel injector. So I've got no gauges, I've got no lights, I've got no nothing. So if there's a short kill in it, that'll fix it. If it's a stator, if my stator's died for some reason, I don't know that I can fix it. I haven't pulled it apart yet. So this is what I'm doing. I've still got to go miles down this freaking dirt road to get to a town to get to cell phone service. So I've rigged up my jump starter cable right to the positive, and the negative I'll grab a bolt. So if it dies, I can get to the battery. See, the problem is I've got all this gear sits on the seat, so I can't pull it off. So once the seat's back on and the gear's on, I can't easily get to it. So that's where we're at right now. Like I said, hopefully it's a short that's small enough that it's just not letting the battery charge, but it's not big enough to blow the fuse. If it's anything other than that, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't even have a plan at this point, other than get to cell phone service where I can start seeing if I can get some help. If I can make it all the way to town and I don't have to jump start it anymore, then maybe I'll just see how far I can get on the road. I don't know. All right, so adventure begins when plan A fails and plan B doesn't work and you don't even know what plan C is. So, all right, here we go. I jump started the bike. I carry this MicroStart. The anti-gravity batteries are really, really good. I carry this in my truck everywhere I go. It's really not that heavy, and when I'm out on an adventure ride, this is always, thank God, always in my pack along with the little jumper cables. I can charge all my devices over and over again, and I can jump start my bike. Remember, I don't have a Kickstarter, so if the battery were to die, I got nowhere to start the bike. So I always carry this, thank goodness. And I jumped the bike and it would run. Obviously, the stator's only putting out 6 volts, so the battery would die right away. My little mini gauge said my system had 9 volts in it. And when it got down to 8, the bike would shut off. And when it jumped it would go up to 10 and it would run for a little while. So that's where we're at. Now, even if the battery were to die, as long as the stator and the rectifier are working fine, the bike should keep running without a battery. Mine didn't. Again, it's just the battery was making a reserve for enough power to keep the bike actually running, but as soon as it ran out of those 9 volts, it's only putting out 6. It wasn't enough to keep the bike running, so it would die. It was at that point that I got it running long enough I could coast the rest of the way down a hill down to pavement. And as soon as I hit the intersection where I had to decide left or right, a gentleman by the name of Justin came along who had been out riding his DRZ, and he rescued me basically. took me into the town of Twisp, and then Moto came in after that. That is the short version of what happened. Basically, I fried the stator myself. I overloaded it, and we're going to go into about how to check it and how to check your rectifier and what everything does. Okay? So, I'm back in Colorado, I'm safe. So basically, and I'm going to take this apart and show you guys, your stator lives in here. Basically, this is where the magic is created. How does that work? I don't know, it's magic, right? This puts out AC voltage, so it's negative, positive. Your bike runs on DC voltage, which is all, it doesn't alternate back and forth between positive and negative. So this puts out AC voltage. Little magnets spin around, some coils, and I'll show those to you here in a second. And then up here, behind my fuse, this thing with all the fins on it has 3 diodes. And what a diode does is it lets the electricity go through in one direction. So when a positive electricity goes through it, it goes through, and when negative hits it, it says, nope, you're cut off, right? It's like the bartender. So there's basically three coils here. There are more than that, but let's go with 3. 3 phases of your coils go through 3 diodes in here. So that's important to remember when you're going to diagnose this, and it makes life easier. There's 3 and 3, right? Because it's magic, so you need 3 things, like Harry Potter, the chick, and what's the red-headed kid's name, right? You need 3 of them to have a good story. So this puts out, should be around 14 volts, give or take. Comes through here, turns it into DC electricity, and then this goes into your battery. I totally oversimplified that. That's all you have to need to know. I've already cheated a little bit. So your stator comes out here, your connector, right, the wire, comes out in the back. There's a whole bunch of little things on there you got to take out, and you got to unclip some stuff. But basically your stator connects here, and then the other coil comes out here. I made that look easy, but just remember, you find the little squeezy stab and squeeze on it. So, and you need a multimeter. You're going to set it to ohms, and I'm going to put links to much better videos. This is just a real quick and dirty. Your first test through your stator, again, remember in 3s, so there's 3 connectors. What you're looking for is that these 3 numbers are within, I don't know, 5% of each other. And do I got that where you can see it? How about if I move this over? There we go. .6. So A to B, B to A, B to C, 0.7, and then the last one, 3.0. So they're already off, and then you're going to test to ground to see, make sure none of these are grounded out, because this stator floats in there all by itself. And so I'm going to put it in the coil, and I'm going to just touch it to anything that should be grounded, and boom. So there I can already tell you I've got a short. Right? This is what it should look like. This is what it does look like. In other words, it's something's touching something that shouldn't ought to be. That's what it should look like. That's what it does look like. So something's off with the stator, so we're going to pull the cover off. This is your left side cover, your crankcase cover, your stator cover. You see I have the bike laid over on its side. That's so I don't lose the oil out of it. So if you're out in the field, this is the easy way to do it. Just tip your bike over and get to work. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your shift lever off. You can try to do it without, but mine's too close. I can't get it off. So take your shift lever off. If you don't own one of these ratcheting wrenches, you're going to want to go buy an 8mm so you can get that bolt off. It is hard to get off. And then once that's off, then we're going to take these outside bolts off here, okay? All right, so I'm going to do that and pull this cover off. Show you, I don't know if you know this, but Honda includes this really cool little parts bin on their motorcycle, right? So there's a good place if you don't have a place to put all the parts that are going to come out. Next tip is take note of how far each of these bolts sticks out because they're all different lengths, and I'm going to say it's about 1/2 inch. So when you put them back in, they're going to be scattered, right? So when you put them back in, right, that's obviously too short. Just remember they're all going to stick out about 1/2 inch, give or take. And now if you've taken your cover off, you've also got a couple different bolts from the rest. If you want, take a picture of that, that might help. All right, so we're going to pull all these out, and you can lay these out in order too if you want. Okay, those come out, your clutch cable comes off, tuck that out of the way so it's not mangling stuff, and then this cover comes out. Now it's magnetized, or rather there's a magnet in it, so it's going to be kind of tough. Let me show you something I already did. The wire to the stator that goes back here, I've already unplugged it just so I can pull it out and show it to you easier. You don't necessarily have to do that. You're going to pull this out. There are 2 pins that kind of locate everything. Hopefully, oh, there's one. And here's the other one. So looking in here, this is our stator. So you can see the coils, and the magnets are actually in your flywheel. And this spins around the outside of this and through magic creates an electrical charge. I've got it off, and now we're going to pull the stator out, but I'm hoping the light is good enough. Can you see? It's like burnt, and there's actually the epoxy looks like it's melted off right here. The rest of them, they're kind of dark colored, which whatever, but it's kind of dark in there too. But that's like a big, yeah, I can see where that's cooked. All right, so I mean, it's pretty simple to pull it. All right, it's 2 bolts and 3 bolts, and this whole thing just comes apart. All right, and with all those loose, this should just come right out. There we go. Oh yeah. Can you see the backside of that? Right in there. Yeah, the stator's definitely toast. So this is your rectifier. Again, there's 3 diodes in there that take the random AC voltage, the good and the bad magic from your stator, and turn it into nothing but DC voltage. So to test this, because it's right there, it's pretty easy to undo this plug. Right, that comes off, and then you're going to see matching in here is this little 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 3 in the middle that make a triangle are the 3 connections to the diode on here. So let's pull this off so I can show you what that looks like. Okay, there you go. Can you see the connectors in there? This test is a little weird, but the easy version is these 3 diodes. When you put it on diode test, right, the numbers should be about the same. And that's really all you need to know. There's a bunch of other tests, and like I said, I'm going to put a link in there. So I'm looking at all 3, between all 3 diodes, and right, there's no shorts, right? That will show up like this. And then you do a reverse and you do all this other stuff. But the only thing I want you to take note of is when I'm doing all these, all those numbers are about the same, right? If I switch it, if I reverse, again, we already know continuity is good. There we go, right? So that tells me that this rectifier is just fine. Again, don't memorize unless you want to, and again, I'll put a link to people who explain this much, much better than I do. Don't get hung up in the numbers. They should just be the same as you go through your checks. I am going to replace this rectifier because if overloading kills stators, dead stators or burnt stators kill rectifiers. Are you with me? I'm going to replace it, and then I'll probably, I don't know, maybe I'll carry it. I'll at least throw it in the truck so it's somewhere. It's a little weighty to carry on an adventure ride. Basically, just don't let your shit blow up. You won't have to worry about this. And there are a couple other checks you can do. You can check, you can pull the terminals off the battery and check how much voltage is flowing into the battery. You can check how much voltage each phase of your stator is putting out by when it's all connected. When it's all connected, right? By checking that triangle of connections up here, that goes straight. That's a direct connection. So again, the juice flows from here through the 3 yellow wires, right? These 3 wires here into the rectifier, and then the juice flows back out on these outside 2 wires. So these 2 wires go up to your battery. It's really not that complicated, and I want to simplify it even more. So there you go. Again, I am not a wizard with electronics or electricity at all. I can remember a couple basic things, and that's it. So look for those links. I'm going to link you guys to some real wizards who will actually tell you how to do this stuff. Takeaways, remember, 120 watts of power at your disposal. Don't overdo that. Real quick personal note too, some of you reached out to me on social media through Facebook, the WABDR page and my page, and Instagram, and to those of you, especially Kyle, you're the best. I had quite a few people who would say, yeah, we'll drop everything and come rescue you, John. So, having said that, and thank you to everybody else who reached out too. If you guys ever have an issue, specifically in Colorado or maybe Utah, I am certainly not the only resource, but I encourage you to put something out there. And if I can, I will come with my pickup truck and my hitch carrier and whatever spare parts you might need. If I can, I will come out and rescue you, I promise. Oh, and I also want to thank everybody who sent me via text or via Instagram, Instant Messenger, or whatever, diagrams and suggestions on what you thought of it was. Surprisingly, at this time, the internet was right. Most of you either called the rectifier or the stator. And so whoever said stator, bonus points, you win, ding, ding, ding. Could have been the rectifier too, though. You were onto something. But to everybody who reached out in that way, because you couldn't show up yourself. Thank you guys so much for all your help. I really, really appreciate it. All right, and that's a wrap. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thanks to everybody who reached out. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Thank you.